Hello, I'm Shane in Sweden and welcome back to our series of videos on building a World of Tanks web application. We're just going to go back and look once again at the World of Tanks API. Under tankopedia we want just the vehicles method, yes, there it is. And it shows you the parameters you can send into this method. You're able to have it as a get or a post. You can have it as a HTTP or an encrypted HTTPS method, and it just gives you a list here of the results. You can see there's quite a lot of different types of information we can fetch on our available tanks. Now, interestingly enough, we could even test these methods online without building anything using the API Explorer. And here we're going to run it as an encrypted HTTPS as a get, and we need to know what value we can use here for the nation. So let's see. I think that's available under, is it tankopedia information? Tankopedia information. Right. And we can see what, for example, different values are available for, like you see vehicle roles or languages here again. But let's see, we want countries and nations. Nations, for example, here. You can see Germany, USA, check the different countries you can have. Great, okay. So if we go back to our API Explorer and we enter invite tank, and it's tier 1, yeah. Here we should see the lol tractor coming up. Now it gives us the request URL, since this is a get, and it also shows us the type of data it returns. Okay, and as you can see, the data comes back as JSON text, so it's quite readable. So this is the method we're going to use for our application, and this is what we'll be working towards to build a client that uses this data. So we start a solution in Visual Studio. We're going to create a new project. And the project here is going to be, well, actually it's just going to be a class library. So just call this, somewhere, where is it? Yeah, I'll create a new catalog for it. Right, under WOT app, that's good. And we'll call the class library, WOT.data. You're right, so this is the class library that will fetch information from the World of Tanks server. Okay. So let Visual Studio build that. Okay, I'm going to usually start with this basic class 1. And we're just going to change, I think we'll have another, a different namespace for our WOT data. All our, just rename our class. We'll call this to WOT. Let's rename our class to WOT manager. Yes, so it matches the class name. So we probably should have done this first because Visual Studio automatically renames the classes. Right, and we're going to create inside our data a data bearing class called vehicle, and we're having a method which we'll call getVehicle, which will fetch information from the World of Tanks server. And at the moment, of course, we don't have anything. We don't even have a vehicle class, so let's just fix that. We generate that to a new file. And as you can see, Visual Studio has created a new file. Now, we're going to work kind of TDD here. So the first thing we do before we build anything more is we're going to build a unit test project. We'll call this WOT data tests. Great. And let's do the smart thing now and rename from the class. We'll call this the WOT manager tests. And as you see, Visual Studio automatically renames the class. Right, so let's create our first test method, which I think we'll adhere to the AAA pattern for creating unit tests. So it's arrange, act, and assert. Okay, so you set up the test in the arrange, you do the actual action you're testing in the act, and then you assert at the end to check it's gone okay. Let's see, call this yeah, get German tier 1 light tank. Yep, tanks. Of course there is only one tier 1 German light tank. And we're expecting, we're going to send in correct search information, and as a result we would expect it to return a lol tractor. So let's see, it returns lol tractor, yeah. Okay, so we've created our first test. And what we do in the following in the test TDD format is we're going to actually create a test that fails, and then we're going to change the code so that it passes. So let's just make that method static, and we're going to call the WOT manager method. That's right, we need a reference to the WOT manager in our test project, otherwise we won't see it. So yes, we can call the WOT manager now, and we can call a static method of it, get vehicle, right? That looks good. And that's going to return a vehicle of some sort, a little tractor, for hopefully. And then we just want to check at the moment. We can just do a quick test. Well, let's just assert that yeah, the name of the lol tractor is equal to, or we can choose the nickname or something. What is it? The tag, maybe perhaps. Yeah, that should be okay. We can check that the tag is correct for the lol tractor that we return. Now, as you can see, this is never mind failing. We can't even compile because we don't have any tag. We don't have anything. Our vehicle class is completely empty at the moment. Now here's a problem, because we saw as you see from the JSON data, the amount of information that we can return is very, very large indeed. There's an awful lot of fields there, and it would take quite a long time for us to create a data bearing class that would actually be able to handle all that information. And generally, well, I try to do as little manual coding as possible. So I'm just going to copy this all this JSON text, and I'm going to use a online utility here called JSON utils, and this allows us to take some JSON text and JSON messages and convert them to a class in the language of your choice. And I also want to have the JSON property here, and I'm going to put that as Pascal case, I think, yes, and we're going to call this class yeah, vehicle. Okay, so what we do is we take away all the JSON text there, we paste in our JSON text, and we press and submit. And what it does is it generates C# classes that mimic the structure and the format of that JSON message we got from the World of Tanks server. Okay, now you can't use this 100%, so we'll have to manually work with it, but it gives us a good start, and it'll save us a lot of time in the future. So if we go to our vehicle class, here we can just add in this free code we got from the JSON utility. And you can see right away it doesn't even understand what a JSON property is. That's because we need to add the JSON handling package from NuGet, I think. So if we go to our project here, what did we can install, I think is it Newtonsoft, install package Newtonsoft jot JSON, yes. So let's run that. Right, now this should give us quite a few tools for handling and manipulating JSON text, which is going to be useful in this project since the server returns JSON. And now ReSharper is already saying to us that, yeah, do you want to fix this by adding in references to the appropriate references. So now, okay, so we just need to fix this class a bit so we can get our test up and running. I'm just going to comment out most of the text, yeah, and let's see, where was it? Where was the information that we actually needed? It was under the tree data 3089 because 3089 is the code. So let's go back into our C# class and find our 3089. There we go. That's actually our, in a sense, this is our vehicle class. So let's uncomment the vehicle class. All right, and yep, that's good. And we're going to call that one vehicle. Okay, we now have a vehicle class, as you can see, with many, including there's our tag. You can see radios is premium tag and stuff. We've got many methods, many properties here we can use now without having to write an awful lot of code manually. Next, tanks and modules tree. I don't think we need that right away, so we just comment out those. Also, the default profiles, you know, the what you call it, stock tank, I guess would be a good way to describe it. I don't think we need that at the moment either. So let's just comment out that. Right. Okay. Is there anything else giving us red warnings here? I think we can then go back to our test now and see we're now able to compile our test, right? And in traditional test-driven developments, really you just want to do the minimum amount of work to get your test to pass, and then to do further developments. Before you do further development, you of course create more tests. So without further ado, I think we can just run this test. We've got the test explorer here. And of course, as you might expect, this test is not going to pass because the get vehicle, yeah, there you go. See, the little tractor is null. It's not going to pass simply because the get vehicle method doesn't actually do anything at the moment. So we have a test that's failing, and we've got to fix it by writing some code to make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. Let's just stop our debugging. Let's just move this window aside for the moment. Okay, so we have our get vehicle method. What are we going to do with that? Well, we're obviously going to call the server, and we're going to do it using HTTP client. So we're going to create a client here, which is a HTTP client. Where do we have that? Yes. And while we have that client, we're going to be calling the vehicles method on the World of Tanks server. We have to create our input parameters for our method, for our post method. which is we start off with the dictionary of strings, and we can see from the API what are the inputs we need to send in for this. And we're going to send in an application ID. On the website here you can use demo, but you have to have your actual real application ID, which I'll talk about a bit in the last video on the series here, how you get one of those. But so we're going to create a string, which is application ID, and then we're going to give it a value. Right, exactly, yes, nice. And then what other parameters are going to send in? We're going to send in the nation. Well, actually, wait a second. We could send in just the tank. The tank ID should be unique, so that should be sufficient to actually identify our lol tractor. So let's do that. Yes, works. Returns 1. So if we just only need one more method, and that's the tank ID. We're going to send in 3089, which is the tank ID for the lol tractor, and that's all the parameters I think we need. Yes. Okay. Now, with these form values, we can create correctly formatted content. For our form that we're going to post. Based on our dictionary of strings. And then when we have our form count, we can so we must call our method async, and then we can use await. So our result is await, and we're going to post our form information, post async. So the URL, we need the URL for the method, which you could find on the World of Tanks API, and that's a get. If you just go to a post version and standard HTTP, we don't need to have it encrypted at the moment. So here we've got the URI we need to send our request to. There it is. And right, what more? See, so we've got our URI, and we need to send the content, don't we, as well? Okay. So we're gonna send an await call to the World of Tanks server, which will asynchronously return a result. And here we can see, of course, we can't return a vehicle since it's an async method. We need to return task vehicle, but that's okay. Wait a second. Stop. We can't. We need to have an actual application ID. So let's just change that out to a method get application ID. We'll use resharper to suggest a method, and then here we can return a real application ID. but okay, and we're getting a changing the method to response method, and we need to interpret our strings. We get back, yes, so we pluck out the JSON text from the results, which is also, we can do it as an asynchronous method. Okay, that's good. It's also an await method. So now we're actually collecting JSON text, and we can go back here, I think, and see what we're getting out. Yes, we actually probably should run this because we want to wait until we don't want to go further in the unit test. Now, when we've got a unit test which is async, we actually have to return a task, just so that the Visual Studio understands that this is an asynchronous task, and that will allow us to await for the actual result back from the HTTP client call. So we'll come to the method, and if we step once into the method, we can see we're getting our application. HTTP response, yes, we get a result. That's good. And if we read out the content, we should see some JSON text, and we do. That's great. So we're actually contacting the World of Tanks server. We're actually fetching the lol tractors text, so we're starting to make progress here. Okay, now we obviously don't want JSON text. We actually want a C# class, a vehicle class. So we're going to have to deserialize our JSON text. And actually this is why, partially why we took those JSON properties and stuff, to help us deserialize the raw JSON text into our vehicle class. So we need to add, I think it's extended web, isn't it, that contains the JSON serializer. System.web extensions, yes. That should do it. And now we should be able to see a JavaScript. Yes, import that. Thank you very much. So we've got a JavaScript serializer. So we're instancing a JavaScript serializer class, and then we're going to use that serializer to convert our raw JSON text to some sort of anonymous class. So we're going to use the dynamic. So it won't be quite, as you saw, the response we get back won't be exactly a vehicle. It will be a class which contains all the information needed for to create one vehicle object. So, and that tank object will actually contains data dictionaries. Which one of them is a data dictionary which is of type meta, or has a key of meta. The other has data, and it's the data object. We want the data branch. Okay, and then there'll be, in the data branch, there'll be a list of dictionaries which are one for each vehicle we return. So we can pluck out each dictionary in turn. Now those dictionaries are actually the text needed for our tank. Okay, so we can take out one of these tanks. with this we'll have the JSON text for one vehicle, and that we can deserialize direct using the same serializer. So we need to serialize first, and then deserialize. But this time we're not doing an anonymous deserialization. We're deserializing to an actual type of vehicle. Okay. And that's good. And then if we need to return the vehicle. So this is obviously all very rough and ready, but we're just doing the minimum amount of work we can to get our test to run. That's inside the using, so it's not available. I'll just move that. So, like I said, we're trying to do the minimum amount of work to get our test to pass before moving on. We need to return, yeah. Sorry, we need to nullify that. Right, okay. So everything's looking kind of good. Let's test our test again, run our test again. We step in, we go to our clients, we create our methods, we fetch, we serialize. We've got a couple of different values here. We serialize that result for one tank, and then convert it back to a. There we've got a WOT vehicle, and there you can see we've got the information. Look at that, isn't that glorious? There's our tag with the information on guns and engines and crews and if it's premium or lovely. And there you can see it comes back with the IDs. You could use other methods in the API to fetch out the the individual information on that individual gun. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So now we can just go back to our test. Right, so now we can rerun with our certs, hopefully here. Okay. And if we rerun our test, and it's green. Great. We have fetched our vehicle information from the World of Tanks server using their API. And we can actually change this a bit, so we can make the method a bit more flexible, so that we can send the method the ID of the vehicle we want. I should have changed this in test first, but whatever. So let's send it in 3089. Yes. Okay. Let's rerun that. Okay. That's looking good. Now we really want to clean up this method a bit. It's absolutely horrible here, running through a big loop. Because what happens if we fetch 20 tanks? We're going to be giving out the results for the last, whereas in fact we know that we're only going to be fetching one tank, since every tank has a unique ID. So let's just grab the first and deserialize that. Deserialize that. Yeah. Yes. So now we just return the first, and there should only ever be one tank. Let's check our tests are going. We've got a build error. Oh, we've accidentally damaged something here. Hold on, let's view code. Yes, is that okay? String, yep. Okay, let's run again. So fantastic. As an alternative to the serialize or deserialize, then serialize, then deserialize combination here, which is probably a little bit inefficient, we can actually use another alternative using the JObject libraries we get from Newtonsoft. And if we comment out everything here, we can test this. We can start with our JObject, which is a JSON tank object, which we create by parsing the actual JSON text we've gathered up here. We can actually comment at that. We don't need the JavaScript to serialize anymore. So we're actually going to parse our tank string to create a JSON object, and use LINQ for JSON objects. We can actually parse out just the piece of that JSON string we need. So we have our JSON tank string is equal to, we get that from our JSON tank object. And the first bit, of course, is we need to find the node that we're using, and our node is the data and then the tank ID. That will pluck out the part of the JSON text we need, and then we need to convert that to a string. Okay, so we've now isolated the element of the JSON data tree that contains our tank object. And then we can deserialize that to our vehicle class. We can actually use JSON convert this time, another standard class. We're going to deserialize an object of type vehicle using our JSON tank string. And this is just an alternative way to achieve the same ends. And if we run our unit test again, the test is running, and we still get a green result. So the point here being that you don't have to produce a perfect method right away. You can start with one method that works and then refine and refine and refine until you get the results that you want. So fantastic, green results. We've now got our method, our library for capturing tank information from the World Tank server, which is exactly what we needed. So on to the next stage with the web application.